Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and welcome to my first episode of hosted horror movie reviews. So this week we're going to take a look at this special, The Mummy and the Monkeys Pumpkin Spice Halloween Special number 5, featuring the film The Dead Next Door. So for this little series, what I'm going to do is review a movie that was hosted by a horror host. Some perhaps very well known, some perhaps lesser known. And, ever since I was a kid, growing up watching Philadelphia area TV and Dr. Shock on Channel 17 in the 1970s, I've always been a fan of watching movies that were hosted by a horror host, and I've read quite a bit about some of the different ones around the country. So I decided to do some reviews this year where I just review the whole package, so to speak, the film itself and the host segments, and just maybe encourage some people to check some of these different horror hosts and their films out. So yeah, this was really cool. I got this from eBay. It is signed by Grim Gory, that would be the monkey, and Janet Decay, that would be the mummy. And this took place, this was shot on location at the Ghoul Brothers haunted attraction in Akron, Ohio. So typically they're in a studio hosting their movies. And by the way, they do have a program that airs most Friday nights called the Harry Scary Hangout. And as of this recording, they just had their 281st episode. So they've been at this quite a while. They're just very nice people too. Really a lot of great interaction with the fans during their live stream. They sent me this nice little note here. Check out our YouTube channel, which I often do. And a nice little card here. Happy Halloween from the Mummy and the Monkey. So typically, they review older films. Like last week, they did The Devil's Messenger with Lon Chaney Jr. The week before that, they did Phantom from Space. And the week before that, they did Terror by Night, which I believe was a Sherlock Holmes. So typically some older movies from the 40s and 50s, some of which are very good on their own, but what they do is they break them up into different farts, fart 1, fart 2, introduced with a nice fart sound effects. I always think that's funny. That's just me. And then they actually add a lot of their own sound effects and voiceovers into the movie, and it's actually quite clever the way they do it. And, before that, there they are sitting on their couch. They interact with people in the chat and talk about the movie, kind of break it down, who was in it and what it reminded them of. And, it's just a lot of fun. They just do it. They're really good at what they do. They got a lot of cool stuff. Their studio is really cool. And sometimes before their episode starts, they'll show some old footage because they've been at this for a while. So here they are interviewing the director, J.R. Bookwalter, which is pretty cool. This one, of course, was shot on location, so it's a little different. They interviewed the proprietor of the Ghoul Brothers, who I believe had some connection to the movie. I don't quite remember, but this will be a yearly rewatch for me, I'm pretty sure. The movie itself is about an hour and 18 minutes long, so it's relatively short, and it was a lot of fun. It's a little different than the films they usually do. Number one, it's a little bloodier and gorier, which they do warn you about at the beginning of the film. And number two, they don't interject with sound effects and voices and things like that. They just let the movie play. They interrupt it a few times to come back for the host segments as they're exploring the haunted attraction and looking at the different scare actors and so forth, and masks and everything. Just a really cool place to host a Halloween special, obviously. So the movie itself was written and directed by J.R. Bookwalter, and it's essentially a low-budget, very splattery, very gory zombie movie. And it feels like, a low-budget zombie movie that was made in 1989. It's also notable because it stars the late, great Scott Spiegel, who sadly just passed away a few weeks ago. The director of Intruder, someone who worked with people like Sam Raimi and many others. And indeed, in this film, a lot of the characters are named after people like Sam Raimi and Tom Savini, and it's a nice homage to a lot of movies, including the Evil Dead movies, but especially, of course, Romero's zombie films. And essentially, the plot is very simple. You have an introduction which kind of introduces you to the world, and then they flash forward where you have this elite anti-zombie squad, and they actually have these big patches. It's kind of, it's kind of quaint, and they go out and eliminate zombies. But not everybody agrees. There's this faction of humanity that wants them to be saved for some reason, so they're always mobbing their cars and everything. And then once they get out into the woods on a mission, they meet up with a younger person who seems to be, kind of sympathetic and helpful, but he's connected to a religious cult. So now they have to deal with this zealous religious cult leader who is kind of obsessed with using the zombies for his own means. Meanwhile, they have, back at their headquarters, they have a scientist who's doing some experiments, including like putting a voice box in one of the zombies and, making him speak and stuff. And I have to say, overall, the effects are pretty good. They're about, actually, no, I'm not going to say they're about what you think they are. They're probably better overall. I mean, they're really pretty good. As far as plot, you just go with it. The dialogue and everything. This is just a fun movie to watch. It just feels like a Halloween special. I don't know how to describe it. Some of the characters do some ridiculous things. They put their guns down right next to a zombie who's on the floor and not quite dead yet. And, they reach down right next to its mouth. And what do you think happens? So you got a lot of situations that we've seen in other films where someone gets bitten and it's like, oh, can we save them? And then, of course, they have to go out and deal with this religious cult leader. And there's a pretty good climax. It's just a fun ride with lots of gory, splattery effects. And it's just a fun movie to watch. Presented very well by The Mummy and the Monkey. Check out their YouTube channel. They also do things like put up what they call rescued reels, which is just like snippets from old VHS tapes, old toy commercials and different commercials that were on TV back in the day. And of course, they're from Ohio, so they have that local connection. Just really, really nice people. Excellent horror hosts. So check out The Mummy and the Monkey YouTube channel. And I do recommend this Halloween special that I picked up from eBay. And I had a lot of fun with it. Like I said, I'll probably be rewatching this every year. It's just a lot of fun. So there you go. The Mummy and the Monkey. Excellent horror host. Great YouTube channel. Great Halloween special. I'm interested in going back and seeing if I can find their previous Halloween specials now. Come back again for another horror host movie review, and I'll talk to you later.